Ladies and gentlemen, come gather round, come gather round, come gather around. Today, we're going to be trying to fix up this rare old hood, 60 to 61 only, Chevy C10, nostril, ugly, butt ugly front end of the hood. But I have one. We're going to make it pretty.
Pretty much on these hoods, all you're going to find are dents and rust. So, to help make that easier for us, we're going to scrape off all the undercoating. This thing has undercoating freaking everywhere, except where it didn't have undercoating. But I don't think this thing was entirely primered or painted in places, so it rusted out pretty good. I think the whole truck was assembled and then sprayed. So the corners of the hood, front and back, where I'm cutting out here, they just rust from the inside. And I can't find any evidence of any primer or paint inside there. So I think the whole thing was assembled bare and then sprayed. And when there was no spray, that's where it rusted out. So we'll form our little patches to go on the ends here. To get a slight curve in the patch, I just grabbed a couple scrap pieces of pipe that I had, and I just made a small pipe anvil so that I could do some simple bends out here, clamp it in a vise. I want to make a long pipe anvil, maybe like 4 feet long. I just don't have any, so this is what I made with what I have. It works quite well. So here's the rusty pieces from the front of the hood and the back of the hood. I made new patches out of 18 gauge steel for the back and for the front. Scraped all the undercoating off, and then I cut holes big enough to get in here with a sandblaster and clean all of this up, because otherwise that's just going to keep rusting. And new metal should be pretty good. So I'll blast this, epoxy primer this and the back side of the new patch, paint the snot out of it, and then weld it all in, and then I'll spray in an extra bit of sealer at some point. Both the fronts were pretty bad. This is kind of all the way through. I don't think that's actually a drain hole. I'm going to drill a couple extra drains to help this thing drain out. Sandblasting is one of my favorite parts because I see progress and I don't have to have any real skill. You just got to remove all the corrosion and the paint and all the garbage that's in there. It's kind of nice. I use crushed glass. I got the hood over my face to keep that stuff out of my face, and I wear a filtered mask to try and keep from breathing crushed glass. That can't be good for you, but fun stuff. I like doing this. So I blasted this outside. There's a bit of a gaping hole here, which is like, oh my gosh, there's rust here. We need to deal with that. On the other hand, that's where it rusted the most. So maybe that's a good spot to put a drain hole. Nevertheless, it's thin metal, not so good. So I got a piece of paper that I'm going to set up like so, and just kind of push it into the bottom like this, and kind of rub your finger around the edges to try to make a template or a pattern so you can figure out how to make this out of metal. You can also just kind of mark it with a pen. Be careful not to cut the paper. That should be a nice gentle fold going up like so. Dot, 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 dot. And then that's going to be our pattern. We'll put it onto some steel and hope for the best. I would say if you can't make it out of paper, you can't make it out of metal. So form the thing out of paper, make sure it's going to fit, cut out a piece, tin snips, belt sander to get the shape just perfect, cut the hole perfect, and if you can make it fit with 0 gaps, you're going to have less shrink when you weld the thing in. Although stuff's going to shrink just to tick you off, and then you got to deal with that. I had a little bit of shrink in the hood once I got this all back together, but I figured a way to hide it, and I won't point it out to you so you guys will never see it. In one sense, I guess, you can weld things nice and pretty and grind it so nobody was ever there. Depends how much you care, I guess. Ta-da! All right, break it up. Back to work. Back to work. Epoxy primer. Kind of nice. I'm just using a little touch-up gun from Princess Auto. I love that gun. It sprays really nice. Fairly small tip, but you can lay it down pretty wet. Pretty decent. So this is just spraying the inside. I will blast the whole hood at some point, but I'm going to spare you that harassment because someday it'll be just like a 4-hour video of, well, probably a 14-hour video of just blasting. Or not. It's not that fun to watch. Or maybe it could be. Leave a comment below if you want to see a video on blasting. Leave another comment if you're currently blasted while watching this. Watching enough of this, you might want to be blasted. A little bit of a prying action with a little flat blade screwdriver to get everything lined up. MIG weld it using a 140 Lincoln welder. Then grind off all the little heads of your tacks and then go on to the next tack. That makes the tack smaller so that you have a more consistent heat as you put down the next tack. It also forces you to slow down so you don't warp the mother-loving snot out of the panel. It keeps the heat down low because it takes time just to grind all the heads down. And then weld her up. Try to move around, tack at a time, grind her off, tack at a time, grind her off. Takes forever. I hate this. Getting good at it though. I don't think I show all 4 corners of the hood, but they're all basically like what you see here. More of the same. Notice the flashlight to help me see what I'm doing while I'm welding. If you're old like me, you need to leave your comment in large print so that we can see it together, okay? But I'm going to have a nap because I'm tired. It looks like I'm talking to myself in the video. I probably am. It's okay to talk to yourself. It's just when you start telling jokes you've never heard before. That's the problem. Good idea to shine a flashlight from the backside just to see if you missed any tacks, but grinding it when you do your next set of beads really kind of helps you find the spots you missed. I really improved a lot in how well I can cover everything. Then once all the patches are done, just in case the panel moves, I guess, we're moving on to dents. So I tried a variety of techniques in trying to get out the wee dents. The hood's really not bad. It's in pretty good shape. So I'm learning this dent paneling stuff. Finding the low spots, finding the high spots. I used a wire wheel to get all the paint off just so that I'm not beating on paint. And then a dolly, hammer. I have a shrinking disc, which I tried to play with, but I don't think this was really the place for it. And your feeling, like don't go by your eye. Let your hands be the feeling for you. I pretty much always use my left hand for feeling the panel, partly because I suffered an unfortunate hydraulic press incident with my right arm when I was younger, and I have about 80%, 75 to 80% of the feeling in my right hand, so I can't feel fine detail with my right hand, so I'm always feeling it up with my left hand. This was a bit tricky on the nose of the hood. I think I took a piece of metal or a bar and made it so it could fit in there so I could hammer that thing out. I got it pretty gosh darn good. Sanding off some of the paint and working it, it's decent. I could probably get away with just a thick coat of epoxy primer or 2 or 3, but precious little filler in there. These hoods are like super rare. They're like $1,000 US for one in good shape. So this one's pretty decent. I'm pleased with it. Initially I hated these hoods, but now I've grown to like it.
Had a bit of a challenge with this. I've learned a lot since then, and I went back to it with my newfound skills, and they are this. I had a little bit of a crease. It wasn't much. And I could pull out the crease, but then it oil canned. It oil cans because the metal's been stretched. And then you push it back, and there's nowhere for that metal to go, so it coink, ka-coink, ka-coink, it oil cans back and forth. So I used the shrinking disc to get rid of the oil can, which would get rid of the crown. So I pull it back out to get some crown, and then it would oil can, so I shrink it and I lose the crown. Eventually I could get this kind of by shrinking on both sides, where I had a crown, but it was soft like Egyptian cotton. It wasn't a tight panel, and you need the panel to be tight or you can't sand it, you can't use filler. If it's a soft, flexible sheet metal, you're kind of screwed. So, in this video, doing the roof on my 77, I learned, I guess it's this video, I learned how to get the panel tighter, and part of that can be done with heat. So I used a heat gun, focusing on some of the lower spots, and I heat it, and the metal would expand and come towards me, and then I'd stay there till it kind of stops expanding, maybe changes color a little bit, then I blast it with some compressed air to try and kind of hold it there. I believe the blasting with compressed air makes it shrink a little bit, which gets rid of the oil can, but the heat pulled it up so you can have some crown while the compressed air cools it so it doesn't oil can, I think. Nevertheless, it's a lot tighter. I'm looking at this side, and they're not bad. They feel pretty similar. This one could be a bit tighter, so let's try to take a little bit more out of here. I think I'm going to focus right about there. Apparently I need a plug. Yeah, it's tighter. It's magic, freaking magic. I would never have figured this crap out on my own, but this is freaking magic. You can sand that. You can put filler on that. You can put your work boots on there while you're eating lunch by the side of the road of a construction site, whistling at all the ladies. I whistle at my lady, nobody else's. Probably shouldn't say that out loud. That worked well. Ready for primer, or blasting, or barbecue sauce.